Hi, my name is Bob Sakalas. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the intelligent enterprise from SAP in 2021. But before I get started, I'd like to tell you a little bit of a story. Just recently, I was playing in a charity golf tournament, and I was fortunate enough to play with a long-time SAP customer. They had had SAP at their core systems for more than 20 years. And so he was incredibly well versed in all the things that SAP is doing. And the conversation eventually turned to this basic question. I wanted to know what he thought of the intelligent enterprise. And it kind of came down to this question here. Did he look at the intelligent enterprise as mostly a marketing term, or was it truly a game changing moment that was going to redefine how business happened? And before I get to the answer, I can tell you that he was leaning toward this idea of it is mostly a marketing term. He thought it was a great term that described the continuing evolution of SAP's technology as it evolved to help him run a better business. So let me ask you a quick question. If you imagine what treating an infection looked like back in the 1600s, how was it different than it is today in 2021? Remarkably different, right? Well, there was one key piece of technology that changed everything and eventually led us to inventing antibiotics. Can you care to guess what that is? If you're stumped, I can tell you that the key piece of technology changed what doctors did, right? Back in the 1600s, treatment came down to trial and error. A doctor would try something on a patient, see if it worked. If it didn't work, he would try something else, right? That was the basic concept. But the key piece of technology that changed everything was the microscope. The microscope was invented roughly 1595, became more pervasively available by the middle of the 1600s. And for the first time, doctors could see what they were truly trying to treat, that there was something wrong. There were pathogens in the blood. And if we could find the right treatments that reduced or eliminated those pathogens, it would help the patient recover. So fast forward to today, and let's take a look at what corporations are doing. You know, if you think about corporate results, our view of those corporate results today is very much the same as it was back then, right? We are still looking at the symptoms. We have a very clear view, but unfortunately that clear view is mostly in the rear view mirror of our corporation. So when we talk about management, often management is basically looking at what happened and then doing things differently and observing the symptoms. So for example, if tickets stop selling between Philadelphia and San Francisco, management might try a sale and see if that fixes the problem. But unfortunately, that's not what we need. What we really need is the ability to look out the front windshield and drive our businesses looking out the front. And I think that's the moment. That's what the intelligent enterprise really is. It's the crucial inflection in time where we start looking at the front windshield and see that there's a traffic jam or a construction zone or whatever else is coming up and enable ourselves to make the right decisions to move forward, right? So the intelligent enterprise is really a goal, and it's an incredibly important goal. It's the idea of being able to see forward, not backward. You know, what does that really mean? That means you have to truly become data-driven. A lot of companies have tried for the last 20 or 30 years to become data-driven, but they are still a long way from getting to that wonderful point. A lot of companies are also trying to become more real-time because data from last month or last quarter matters a lot less than data that's coming in right now. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is improve decision-making and run better. So the key here, of course, the microscope for the future here is data. The reason this phrase exists, data is the new oil, is absolutely because data is what lets us see what is happening in the business. And it doesn't matter where you serve in the organization, right? So for example, let's say you're an executive leader. You may be looking to make a decision about where do you invest your capital going forward? What new countries do you enter with what new products? That data can help you get that done. On the other hand, if you're at headquarters and you're in management, perhaps you're just simply trying to optimize business processes to make sure everything runs extremely well. The same thing's true in customer service. If somebody's calling in, you would love to be able to tell that person where their package is, when it's going to be delivered, what else is going on with their order to make sure that you are empowered to absolutely help your customer and delight the customer. Of course, if you look at the complex symphony that is the supply chain, data is absolutely the oil that makes sure that you understand if you're going to get the parts in time, if the manufacturing line is going to be able to be optimized. And of course, absolutely in manufacturing, that data matters too, right? We have an incredible mismatch of machinery, robotics, and human workers. And we have to make sure that everything is working perfectly so that we can absolutely react when demand goes up or demand goes down, right? And then lastly, on the front lines, for example, a place like retailing, right? The sales associate would love to know what her customer has been purchasing in the past so that she can anticipate her needs and serve her best. So ultimately, data is becoming the world's most valuable resource. This article in the Economist cover page actually came out in 2017. So this is not a new story, right? But data is absolutely supplanting oil as the world's most valuable resource. It is absolutely contributing to the market cap of a lot of different companies. McKinsey did a study to see what the value of or the future value of data is going to be, right? And in that study, McKinsey came back and said that they thought vehicle gathered data would be worth nearly $1 trillion, $750 billion a year, just 10 years from now. So when you look at the market cap of Tesla, for example, you might say, wow, Tesla looks incredibly overvalued if you look at it from a PE perspective. On the other hand, if you look at it from the rich treasure trove of data that Tesla has, this company has more vehicle gathered data than any other company on earth, and they're doing their best to try to leverage that. But this applies to all kinds of industries, just not the newest ones like the one created by Tesla, right? If you look at McKinsey's estimate of the value of electrical utilities data, even that is still worth $500 billion, $500 billion in the next 10 years. And I can promise you without a doubt that if you look at the market cap of the leading electrical utilities around the world, the value of this data is absolutely not reflected in that market cap yet, but soon may be. So the question comes down to this. What do you believe the value of a terabyte of stored data is in 2021? Well, of course, this is kind of a trick question, right? That storing the terabytes of data versus leveraging the terabytes of data is an incredible difference when it comes to what the true value of that is, right? The truth is that you have to have timely, refined data, and you need to apply that so you can achieve superior business outcomes like these. Most of our customers identify these as incredibly important strategic objectives that they have, right? They want to create compelling products. They want to be able to improve customer service by looking at the data and understanding what's actually happening, right? They want to optimize not only their suppliers, but the partners that they partner with to make sure everything's running extremely well. They want to enable new business models. They want to optimize all their spend to make sure they're spending their capital on the right things, right? They want to react quickly and are able to respond when challenging times or just market dynamics hit, right? And ultimately, what everybody's trying to do is empower better decisions. Now, there's no doubt there's a problem, and that problem is the size of the data itself. If you look at my picture here, Mercury to scale represents the transactional or the operational data that we've been tracking for the last number of decades, right? And we all know that's not been easy, right? It's still quite a bit of data. But when you look at the size of big data, the stuff that comes from Internet of Things or video or audio or environmental data, it's absolutely huge and dwarfs the size of this transactional data. But as I travel around the country and talk to customers, I ask this question. Must you leverage all your data well? Do you believe that you need to leverage all your data well to remain highly competitive in the next 5 to 10 years? And overwhelmingly, every executive I speak to says the exact same thing. Absolutely. We have to take advantage of this data. So step one is to integrate this operational data, basically the keys to our kingdom, with all this big data because we're after the why things are happening, not just what happened, right? And then SAP has identified an entirely different planet of data that needs to be included as well. And that's the experience data. What experience are your customers having as they interface with your company? What experience do your employees have? What do people think of your brand and your individual products? All that experience must be integrated with your organizational data and the traditional big data that I just talked about. So there's no doubt in my mind that no human being or no set of human beings can possibly tackle this problem alone, right? It's an incredible amount of data, and trying to find the signal from the noise is a difficult task. That what you have to do in this case is absolutely apply very smart technologies, intelligent technologies like machine learning and AI and chatbots and predictive to find the signal from the noise. And you have to do it quite quickly because what we're after is the why. Why did something happen? Why did those tickets stop selling between Philadelphia and San Francisco, right? But we want to find that out in time to act. That's the crucial component here. Not only do we need to find the correlations, we have to be sure that we can act in time and act in such a way that we build customers for life. Lastly, we have to manage this entire pile of data very professionally, right? Because there's privacy policies. The European privacy policy, the California privacy policy are just the tip of the iceberg. More is coming, and we have to make sure that we keep the data secure, we keep it clean, and we let customers decide what's private and what needs to be forgotten. So the question I have next to you is, are most vendors truly helping you right now? And I think the answer, I think we all know this at our heart, is yeah, perhaps not, right? This is a view of just the top vendors that are competing for your business in the data and AI landscape. And it's a mind-boggling number of vendors. And the vast majority of these are simply trying to get your data and produce a very siloed analysis that perhaps a few decision makers can use. But that's really not the reality going forward. The reality is everybody from the CEO down to the customer service agent needs to have the data to make better decisions every single day as part of the existing business process. Even if I narrow this list down to just, let's say, the top 25, and you look at it across a matrix of things like applications and analytics and intelligent technologies and infrastructure, it's still a mind-bogglingly difficult problem to make sure that all this stuff really works well together. But here's the good news. SAP, since the day we were founded nearly 50 years ago, has had one driving mission, basically, right? We believe in our heart that the way you get the maximum value from your IT systems, from your enterprise systems, is that the whole must be greater than the sum of the parts. This is an absolutely crucial concept, and it's exactly what we're working on. When you look at this key KPMG study, there's no doubt that data is absolutely at the heart of disruption and at the heart of the experience economy, right? Nearly 60% of companies are trying to use data and analytics towards strategic ends. Nearly 80% absolutely recognize the importance of connecting operations with the customer experience. You know, if they're actually able to take advantage of that, that's a whole different issue, right? But at least 72% of the companies have absolutely started down this path, trying to figure out how to disrupt their own business so that they can survive and thrive in this environment. Ultimately, everybody's after the same thing. They want to decide with confidence and integrity. They want to connect their processes with the experience that their customers and their employees are having. And lastly, they want to continuously innovate because the world is changing so quickly. So it's crucially important that we do something now. Why? It's because this transformation from being a company that looks in the past to a company that looks into the future is absolutely what enables agility and resilience, right? You've got to move now, you got to improve now, or there's a good chance you'll lose market share. And there's no doubt that this is not something you just buy off the shelf. It is an absolute journey that you have to participate on. So a good question that comes up is, wait a second, are my competitors already using AI to this great advantage and maybe I'm way too far behind? I think the answer is no. Here, during an interview with Mark Cuban on CNBC, he talked about this basic idea. He said, look, from what he sees, roughly a dozen companies are using AI effectively. And in his mind, AI effectively means customizing the customer's experience based on individual needs of the customer, right? He identified basically Netflix and Amazon as great examples of companies that customize the experience for their customers, but not a lot of other companies do. So there's a lot of room for this, right? So to get to the end, data must be refined, it must be timely, it must be integrated, it must be operationalized. And that fourth piece is especially important. Not a lot of companies that are currently competing for business are talking about how to operationalize the smarts of the data and put it back into your existing business processes. So if you look at what we've been doing, step one, gathering this vision, gathering the microscope of our company is something that everybody's been working on. This is all that big data that we've been storing in places like Amazon S3 or in Cloudera or in other Hadoop systems. You know, cheap places where we're just shoving the data, knowing that there's value, but we're not necessarily refining it today. The next big step, of course, is to not just have a few data scientists that are after one specific insight and attacking the data that way. We have to basically give freedom to the entire organization to find the correlations that matter to their department, right? To simulate income outcomes, and to make sure that we start, making the right decision based on this newfound vision. The third step, of course, is to act in time to make a difference. If you find out that you should have done something 6 months ago, it doesn't necessarily help you satisfy or delight your shareholders today. And lastly, the system itself needs to learn over time, just like a self-driving car learns to drive after you've been over it a few times, right? The system has to get smarter on its own. And that's exactly what we're after in this case. So, if you imagine a real world example, perhaps this ship gets stuck in port for some customs reason. It's incredibly important to recognize that there's a problem, find out what shipments are on that ship, and contact your customers in time to earn this idea of being a vendor that they trust, and in your case, getting a customer for life, right? That's the basic concept here. The reason SAP invented the Business Technology Platform is that we were after this goal. It's the fastest way to turn data into business value. The keys to this are that the data has to be integrated. It's got to be refined. It's got to be timely. It's got to be operationalized. Processes need to be automated. And the entire gamut here has to be managed from a lifecycle perspective. Ultimately, it also has to scale, right? It doesn't make any sense if you can do all this in the lab, but when you suddenly open it up to your 100,000 customers, things break down, right? So it has to absolutely scale. And the Business Technology Platform is designed to make sure it can accommodate that size and scope. Our biggest problem, and there's always a problem, right? But this is the one we have to solve now. That biggest problem is complexity. If you look at the chart of our enterprise today, a lot of systems were assembled over time. Individual departments bought different solutions. They threw it over the wall to IT and said, hey, can you make this all work together? And the IT department got busy, created a lot of data movement, data transformation, all kinds of different things got cobbled together with bubblegum and duct tape. And that's why your chart looks like this. You've been successful. That's exactly how you got here, right? But if you don't figure out a way to conquer this complexity, you're never going to become as nimble and as resilient, as competitive as you need to be going into the future. The problem is that the future doesn't stand still. Gartner Group went out and looked at application backlogs and discovered that the backlogs at most companies are growing 5 times faster than IT can deliver using current results. So that's yet another problem that has to be solved. The world's too complex, the chart is way too complex, and the backlog continues to grow and add to that complexity. My suggestion above everything else is let's not repeat the same mistakes twice. And maybe the word mistakes is a little bit too harsh in this case, right? Maybe it's compromises. The problem was that the technology evolved over time. What we could do in the 70s with mainframes is completely different than what we could do with client server in the 80s, or when the internet exploded in the 90s, or when we all went to the cloud and to mobile going forward from there, right? What we really need is a new playbook for this problem. Here's point A. This is our complex chart, and we have to do something with this, but we also have to figure out a way to move forward and suddenly become much more productive, much more, innovative as far as when it comes to integrating everything together. So the way I look at this chart, to me, what it looks like is the insides of a Swiss watch. All these gears intermesh, and when they all work together, we can report our numbers to Wall Street on time. Great, right? But the problem is this is why we don't want to upgrade our systems very often. We're very scared that if we change a couple of these gears, something may go wrong. What we really need is a new playbook for information technology and redesign our core systems to look a lot more like a modern smartwatch. Have you ever worried if you download the newest fitness app to your smartwatch that suddenly core timekeeping is not going to work well? Or if you download a new task management system that suddenly your calendar is not going to work well on that smartwatch? Or if you download the new bus schedules, right? No, the answer is no. You've never worried about that because the inner workings of the watch, the core of the watch, absolutely has secure connectors and APIs and all these things to make sure that the core functionality works while all these innovations from all these different vendors can flourish on the outside. That's exactly what we need to do with our core systems as well. Clayton Christensen, a Harvard professor, is famous for writing many, many bestsellers on this idea of disruption. And he observed this incredibly important point. Breaking an old business model is always going to require leaders to follow their instinct because there's always going to be pervasive reasons to not take a risk. But if you don't take the risk, if you don't follow common sense, if you don't make the move, there's going to be a moment where you wake up and the world has passed you by. The good news is that SAP can help. Not only do we have the experience, we've taken our best practices and created an incredible platform, the Business Technology Platform, that accomplishes that basically overcomes complexity and helps you move faster. The truth is, we kind of dug our own hole. We went shopping. We went and bought Concur and SuccessFactors and Ariba and Fieldglass. And every one of these things turned into a big transformation project that takes quite a bit of time in the back end. At the same time, over 100,000 SAP employees wanted better now. We all wanted everything to be available on our mobile devices, and we had multiple mobile devices. We wanted a common Fiori launchpad where we could see every application that we need right in one spot. We wanted to be able to have things like machine learning and chatbots and all this stuff work, and we didn't care how long it took the IT department to fix these big transformations on the back end. That's when we introduced the SAP platform. This whole idea of basically being able to keep your back office pristine, all those core systems are upgradable, while you're innovating it on the front end so that all your business users have a very innovative experience and don't care how long it takes you to upgrade the system that supports us asking for a day off, right? We then evolved it into what we call today the Business Technology Platform. It really combines this idea of integrating using cloud technologies, extending, which is basically modifying off-the-shelf software so it fits our world, embedding analytics with Analytics Cloud, including HANA, the world's fastest database engine that happens to have advanced engines on top of that that do wonderful things like predictive and text analytics and all that kind of wonderful stuff. And then modularly attaching intelligent technologies like machine learning and AI so that the entire world works well together. What BTP really offers you is the ability to keep that core pristine, secure, and upgradable, just like the inside of your smartwatch. At the same time, it lets you, basically accomplish what we believe is the most important thing. How do you make the whole of all your investments in IT pay off? The whole's got to be greater than some of the parts. It's the place where you are able to achieve a bespoke fit for your enterprise, no matter what software you use. It's where you can build new innovations quickly, and because it's modular, it's how you insert the best of ML and AI and chatbots and predictive and all these other advanced technologies into your existing business process. That's the operationalized component of all that. Maybe the easiest way to think about this is through an analogy. The key difference in my mind is that the BTP platform makes you more productive, right? In our measurements, 300 to 500% more productive. But the way to imagine this, I think, would be like, so imagine your boss comes in and says, look, we've got this important meeting with our customer. Our customer's the city of Seattle. They're coming in, they want to talk about this downtown renovation project. And to impress them, I want you to build a huge Lego city that covers our entire conference table. So when they come in, they're going to be really, really impressed. And by the way, they're going to be here next Monday. I mean, this is like real life, right? There's always a deadline. There's always something that has to get done. And it's usually a very difficult project. So my question to you is, what would you do? Would you rely on using pre-built, pre-engineered, well-worked out Lego city kits to help build this city on the conference table and save your job? Or would you go to the lowest common denominator, the Lego itself, the Lego block, and build it from scratch? This is an incredible analogy for exactly what SAP is offering, right? SAP is offering this idea of already well-engineered city kits that'll help you accomplish your project, while all the infrastructure players, like our partner, Amazon Web Services, they're offering you the lowest common denominator, the Lego block. And sure, it can be used to accomplish the project, but I can promise you it would never come out as fast. So if you look at our platform in the extension and integration suite area, these are the components. That stuff in purple are our Lego city kits that I just talked about. If you need to accomplish something, you can take, components out of there that are basically 85, 90% done for what you need, and use the components in yellow, the developer environments, to simply snap things together and accomplish exactly what you're trying to do. Our platform runs on top of your favorite infrastructure. So whether you use AWS or Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud Platform or Alibaba Cloud, all this will run on top of their infrastructure. It'll help you integrate across all SAP properties. And because we support open connectors, it'll also let you integrate to all the other primary components that you would buy to help run your business. Ultimately, So let me give you an example. So let's say you wanted to create a supplier portal, right? Take our portal technology to start with, and now you want to connect it to your back office system. So you would use our connectivity components. You want single sign-on to make sure you've got great security. So you'd use our security components to accomplish that. Let's say you then wanted it to be able to generate purchase orders within your core system. So maybe you would add workflow to that. So the new portal could actually create something that gets approved and all of a sudden becomes part of your regular SAP flow. Now, let's say the product you're actually trying to produce for the supplier is so they can do analytics on the goods that they're selling through your company. So now you include analytics as an embedded solution. And because you do business in North America and in Europe, you want to translate it to roughly a dozen languages. All this is possible. All this is 85% written. You would simply assemble it using our components. And so ultimately, I think that's the big difference. If you want to talk about what's the key difference between us and everybody else, it comes down to content. SAP is shipping content that helps you with integration, with extension, with analytics, all across the board. You can take pre-written best practices and content and snap it together in an incredible solution, and it helps you move 300 to 500% faster. Moving faster is incredibly important. Gartner has pointed out that they believe the next 5 years will have more change than the last 50, and all of us have seen what the last 50 look like. This quote has absolutely stood the test of time. It's from Charles Darwin. And let me paraphrase it. It's not the strongest or most intelligent company that's going to survive. Really, the ones that survive and thrive are going to be the ones that are most adaptable to change. This is an adoption curve you do not want to be behind. We recommend putting our business technology platform on your favorite infrastructure cloud because we're good at different things. SAP is absolutely the best company on earth when it comes to your business process, while AWS, Azure, Google, all these guys are really great at IT challenges. If you want to double your storage or you want to increase your computers or start up a new data center on the West Coast, that's exactly what they're good for. They're really good at helping the IT department do IT things. We're great at applying IT to solve business problems. So, what makes BTP truly unique? It's because it solves all four key issues. We are building our entire world, whether we're talking about S4 and the Intelligence Suite, we're talking about our specific industry solutions in Industry Cloud, we're talking about all the things that we're doing in sustainability and experience management, or the business network stuff. All that is being built on top of the business technology platform so that you have this wonderful integration. If I double click into the BTP, you'll find out that it's got lots and lots of different components, but what I think is important is to understand the benefits by putting all this stuff together, right? The benefits in our database and data management area are that you get real-time access to all your data under one data model, and it doesn't matter if it's SAP data or non-SAP data. Remember the original problem of making sure that everything is integrating. We offer all the data governance, data quality, lifecycle management, all that stuff that you need to make sure you get to a single version of the truth. At the analytics end, we've realized that it's not just a matter of building a pretty dashboard. That's kind of like just you have to have that to just show up. But what you really need is not only to be able to build insights, everybody in the company needs to be able to do that, not just technical people. And then it has to include comprehensive planning so you can look into the future and make a difference as to what happens in your company. You have to gain this 360-degree view that's a real-time view of your enterprise. And that's exactly what we're doing with Analytics Cloud. We've already talked a lot about what we're doing with extension and integration, right? But the idea is that you can use pre-developed content to move quickly. You can abstract those core systems and keep them pristine. And you can integrate both SAP and non-SAP while you're innovating at the edge. And lastly, we think it's incredibly important to embed intelligent technologies like AI within your existing business processes. You've got to leverage things like IoT to make sure that you've got a great view. That's the whole microscope end of this thing, right? And you want to be able to customize the user experience. So let me give you a few customer examples of customers that are already on the journey to becoming an intelligent enterprise. Vestas is the company that builds more of these electrical generating windmills than anybody else on earth. They wanted to move fast. They still had a lot of paper in their construction side when it came to building these big towers, and on their field service side of people that are making sure these things keep running. So they basically partnered with SAP and Apple, and put together an incredible consumer grade experience on iPhones and Androids and iPads, basically getting rid of all the paperwork, making sure the entire enterprise runs faster. The thing that they did incredibly well was to use the technology for exactly what it was supposed to be, which is abstract their core systems so that doesn't get affected. That's the inside of your smartwatch, right? And innovate at the edge. The way their chief architect put it is like the result was incredible. The field personnel absolutely love to use these applications. Doesn't require any training. They actually boiled in KPIs directly into the entire system so they can see the adoption as they give each field person their iPhone. The San Francisco 49ers had a different goal. They were all about how do we become a more real-time enterprise. They used to run this way. 70,000 fans would show up at the football stadium. They would have their football game. 48 hours later, 49 hours later, the 49ers would get a report that said this is what went well and this is what didn't, and they would try to adjust in time for next week. What they did is they took the business technology platform and basically integrated all these third-party systems, whether it was the ticketing systems or the parking lot systems or the food service systems, and they made sure that they had a real-time view and basically a mission control room that said, hey, look, something's going wrong on the west side, and we need to immediately send texts and send over associates to fix the customer's experience right now. It absolutely changed how they do business. This is not incremental growth. As their VP put it, going from being reactive to real time is a completely different game because it changes the possibilities what they can use technology for, and it changes the experience that these 70,000 fans are having in their facility. Murphy Oil had a different world, but it's still an integration problem. They had this this operations center that basically made sure that everybody was running around doing the right task. The problem was that there were 15 different systems, so there's an amazing amount of time lost as people would look up what's happening here, what's happening here, what's happening with this drilling rig, what's happening with this pipeline. And so they integrated all that using the business technology platform to make sure that everybody was working like a Swiss watch. As Rajesh put it, they saw an incredible productivity increase of 15 to 20% with the exact same workforce. The payback was incredible, right? Suddenly the place started running the way it was always intended. Love's Travel, one of the largest privately held operators of truck stops in the United States, wanted to create this incredible HR system that would make sure that all these remote locations not only hired people right, they had the right labor force on site at the right time, all that wonderful stuff. They started working on this and they realized that they needed to leverage rapid application development to move much faster. The results were incredible. Mike McCain put it this way: the bottom line is that we have seen our development increase by a factor or four or five. Things that used to take us 6 months now happen in just 1 month. There's lots and lots of great customer success stories, but I think the common theme, the theme that matters, is that integration above everything else is needed to maximize the value of IT. And it's not just point-to-point integration like many vendors offer. What we're talking about is true business process and data integration, and that is how you achieve business process excellence. If you think about thriving in the new economy, what you have to have is a 360-degree view of not only the customer, but your company as well. A lot of external forces are at play, and you have to make sure that you integrate all that data together. The way we're doing that is at an absolutely deeper level because we're looking at it from the perspective of business processes like lead to cash and source to pay and recruit to retire. And we're very realistic about the fact that not every component within these processes is going to be just an SAP piece of software, right? But if you adopt the way that we're approaching this with the business technology platform, you're going to have a seamless experience. You're going to have one aligned domain model to make sure everything's running well. This is exactly what turns your company into not only a Swiss watch, but a Swiss watch that adapts quickly to change. It's incredibly important to not fall behind because the world continues to move quickly. I believe that you should start soon. As our CEO, Christian Klein, put it, we were founded with this idea that we're going to help you run your business from end to end. What we're committed to today is that we're going to help every single customer become an intelligent enterprise. We'll be able to help you break down all those departmental silos that have been so difficult to break down. And you'll be able to have intelligent processes that work well and deliver an optimum experience for not only your customers, but your employees. The question, of course, is what does your transformation roadmap look like? right? I mean, it's a pretty complex thing sometimes to get from point A to point B. We can help. I would suggest contacting your account team and talking about this and designing a specific roadmap that accommodates what's happening with SAP as well as what's happening in your business, and the plan really comes together. Now, here's the good news. We're offering a brand new program called Rise with SAP. And what this is a concierge service for business transformation. It's going to help you not only transform, but move to the cloud at the same time. With Rise, what you really get is the best of it all. One contract, one price. Yeah, the risk is absolutely not taken out of the equation because you have one throat to choke, right? It helps you improve what you're doing with your business processes. It makes sure that the infrastructure and operations behind the scenes are absolutely state of the art. It includes things like Business Technology Platform to make sure that it works not only with SAP stuff, but non-SAP stuff and turns data into value. And of course, it leads to the world's greatest ERP system that exists today, SAP S/4HANA. So, what are the 5 key takeaways that I hope you had today? Ultimately, the intelligent enterprise is incredibly important. It's not just a marketing term. It's going to redefine how you're competitive going forward. It is the crucial inflection point in time where we're going to start looking out our front windshield or even look at our GPS and find out that we have a problem just over the horizon. You can't wait till the lights all turn green. You're never going to make it across town, right? You've got to get started now, then start leveraging these technologies. The takeaways are pretty simple, right? We're at a crucial tipping point. The Business Technology Platform enables this goal. That's exactly what it was invented for. It basically takes all the smarts that we built over the years and those best practices and puts them in a platform to make sure that you succeed and take the risk away, right? How do you get started now? Well, you start by abstracting your core, right? That simplifies your innovation. You integrate using pre-built content, so you're not supporting all those integrations going forward as things change. And that's what really helps you become more nimble, more resilient. That gives you the ability to use rapid application development to keep up with that growing backlog. I think you should transform your relationship. Not every customer has this, but transform your relationship to one that's one of partnership. If we get together and do a design thinking session on what we're trying to accomplish with the intelligent enterprise, it's limitless on how quickly we can get to the promised land. And lastly, I believe you have to have a shared vision between not only the technology side of your house, but also the business side, because many of these things can't be accomplished by IT alone. You're never going to have data excellence unless the business is involved. You're never going to have process excellence unless they're involved as well. They're the ones that actually own the process, right? You got to have shared development, because when people work on the front end and what their user interface is going to look like the Vestas did by going to Cupertino and designing what the field engineers are going to see, right? That is how you get great customer satisfaction. And lastly, as you infuse intelligence and AI into all your business processes and you want to operationalize it, it's incredibly important that the business understands what you're up to, right? So where do you start? I'd suggest going right here, sap.com/intelligent enterprise. It's a great place to start. And I also would appreciate your feedback. I've got my own feedback site, bobfeedback.com, but this is absolutely the single most important thing that your company can address in 2021. Thanks and have a great day.